ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaskar my dear friends. This is second video on the 40 verses on reality of Ramana Maharshi. This video starts with verse 8. Any sincere worship eventually leads to realization. In whatever name and form the nameless and formless is worshipped, therein lies the path of its realization. Realizing one's truth as the truth of that reality and merging into it is true realization. All roads lead to Rome. All sincere worship comes from the heart and leads to the formless God in the heart. To believe that one's reality is the same as God's is an important step towards the realization of Him as pure consciousness and the process of merging into Him. How many millions of innocent human beings would have been spared the horror of religious persecutions throughout the centuries in the name of God, and how many wars would have been prevented had this truth been accepted as the one truth underlying all religions, the basic world faith. Verse number 9. The Triads and Triads are supported by the one which can be discovered by inquiry. The Triads and Triads rest on the basic one. Inquiring about that one in the mind, they will disappear. Those who see thus are the seers of truth, they remain unruffled. The Triads are the pairs of opposites, knowledge and ignorance, light and darkness, happiness and misery, birth and death, etc. The Triads is triple principle of seeing, seer and sight, object, subject and the perceptions of the former by the latter. As all the numbers stand on and originate from the first number, so are the Triads and Triads based on, arising from and of the same nature as the one seer, the perceiving mind. He who realizes the world as such retains a uniform serenity in all conditions of life. Verse number 10. Knowledge and ignorance are interrelated. Real knowledge arises by inquiring, for whom both knowledge and ignorance occur. Knowledge and ignorance are interrelated. The one does not exist without the other. Inquiring to whom is it that knowledge and that ignorance, and arriving at their root cause, the self, this is true knowledge. To speak of ignorance is to admit its opposite knowledge, and vice versa. Until we become aware of an object, we remain ignorant of its existence. To learn a lesson is to admit our previous ignorance of its content. Knowledge is thus the light which clears away the darkness of ignorance. But knowledge and ignorance which pertain to external objects are mere modes of thought. They come and go and are therefore of no consequence in the search for truth. What is of consequence is there knower who is fixed, changeless, also called first principle, because he is efficient, causeless, the eternal thinker who precedes and survives all his thoughts, the basic one. Verse number 11. Not to speak the self which is the source of knowledge, and ignorance is real ignorance. Is it not ignorance to know all but the all-knowing self, when the latter, the substratum of both knowledge and ignorance, is known, knowledge and ignorance themselves both disappear. It is, of course, foolish to know about everything in the world and remain ignorant of one's own self. Knowledge of the perishable, the universe and its contents, perishes with the body and cannot be transferred to another body, except perhaps as tendencies or abilities in the perishable too, which may not have any spiritual value in a future life. The imperishable alone endures and gives imperishable satisfaction, and this lies wholly within ourselves, who are the source and ground of both knowledge and ignorance, that is, of all experiences, whatever. Verse number 12. True knowledge is self-effulgent. It is neither knowledge nor ignorance. True knowledge is neither knowledge or ignorance. Objective knowledge is not true knowledge, because the self is self-effulgent, having no second to know or be known. It is supreme knowledge, not empty nothingness. This continues the theme of verse 10 and 11. We have seen that objective knowledge is knowledge of the perishable, the apparent, the non-existent, the unreal. See invocation. Self-awareness is true knowledge because it is absolute, that is changeless, non-dual, ever pure, thought-free. This purity is not emptiness because of the lack of perceivable objectives in it, but the ever-shining plenum of awareness being Chit Sattva. Verse number 13. Knowledge of diversity is ignorance, yet it is not apart from the self, like the shapes of ornaments, which are not apart from the gold. The self alone is knowledge, is truth. Knowledge of the diversity is ignorance, is false knowledge. Yet, ignorance is not apart from the self, which is knowledge. Are the ornaments different from the gold, which is real? So the world with all its multiplicity of shapes, colors, smells, tastes, and so forth is nothing but pure consciousness in substance, like variously shaped jewelry which is nothing but gold. To perceive shapes, colors, smells, and the like as different from one another is ignorance, is illusion, but to see them as the single substance out of which they are made, the pure mind, is true knowledge. Yet, ignorance is not apart from the self, because all experiences as thoughts come from the self and are witnessed by it. Verse 14. You and he exist when the I exists. If the root of the I, the one, is found, you and he will also shine as the one. The I existing, you and he also exist. If by investigating the truth of the I ceases, you and he will also cease and will shine as the one. This is the natural state of one's being. You and he are the world. It stands and falls with the I or ego, which constructs it. Realizing one's being is realizing the whole world to be the same effulgent being, the one. This state of being is experienced by the self-realized man in the waking state consciously and by all men in dreamless sleep. In dreamless sleep, Susupti, the I, like everything else, disappears and once remaining in one's native state in the true I, but generally without retaining memory of this condition on awakening. Verse number 15. Past and future are only the present when they occur. Thus, the present alone exists. On the present, the past and the future stand. They too are the present in their times. Thus, the present alone exists. Ignoring the present and seeking to know the past and the future is like trying to count without the initial unit. The present is always, for even the past was the present in its time, and so also will the future be the present in its time. Whatever happens, therefore, happens only in the present. When Methuselah was born, he was born in the present, and when he died after 9 or 10 centuries, he died also in the present, despite the later date. Similarly, all that happened to him between those two events happened also in the present. Thus, the present is the only significant tense in actuality. Moreover, let us not forget the fact that time is made of instants which are so minute as to have no room either for a past or for a future, but for the present alone. The next verse will tell us that even the present is unreal, being one of the notions of our mind, as past and future are acts of our memory. Verse number 16. Time and space do not exist apart from the self. Do time and space exist apart from us? If we are the body, we are affected by time and space. But are we the body? We are the same now, then, and forever. Of course, time and space are mere concepts in us because in our long journey in life we pass through multitudes of experiences. We have to conceive past, present, and future in order to arrange them conveniently in their sequence of occurrence in our memory. Because we perceive multiplicity, we have to conceive a space in which to accommodate them. like the screen on which movie pictures are spread. Without a screen, there can be no pictures. The screen on which the universe actually appears and moves is thus our own mind, from which it emanates as thoughts, either of external physical objects or of internal concepts, sensations, emotions, including the senses of time and space. Those who take themselves for the body take time to be the creator and destroyer of all things, and thus it inspires them with great fear, fear of future calamities, of death, of loss of fortune and positions, or whatever it may be. Many of them consult astrologers to read the decrees of time and foretell events long in advance of their occurrence. To them, birth, youth, old age, and death, creation, preservation, and dissolution, past, present, and future, health and disease, prosperity, and adversity all exist without the shadow of a doubt. They fall prey to time and its vagaries. The others who know themselves to be pure spirit are bodiless, timeless, and spaceless, and Bhagavan affirms they are thus free from the hallucination of we alone are, time and space are not. Verse number 17. To those who have not realized the eye is of the size of the body, to those who have, it is limitless. To those who have not realized the self, as well as to those who have, the body is I. To the form, the eye is only the size of the body, whereas to those who have realized the self within the body, the eye shines without limits. This is the difference between the two. The jnani, the self-realized like everybody else, refers to the body as I, whereas the others confine their I to the flesh and body and to its height and breadth. The jnani takes his I to be the life which pervades the body as well as the limitless space outside it. Realization is the direct and indubitable proof of this truth. Verse number 18. To those who have not realized the world is confined to the space it occupies, to those who have, it is the limitless substratum of the world. To those who have realized the self and to those who have not, the world is real. To the latter, its reality is confined to the spatial measurements of the world, whereas to the former it is formless and shines as the substratum of the world. This is the difference between the two. The space which the world occupies is the limit of its reality to the ignorant ajnani, but to the jnani it is the limitless substratum of the world. Science tells us that space is not material, that is, it is not made of atoms and molecules like the objects which occupy it, to be visible to the eye. The perception of space by the eye is the worst illusion man suffers. Space is a mental concept, that is, it is a project by the mind to make the reality of the world plausible. If space is a concept, so should be the objects that occupy it. Notwithstanding their atoms and molecules, all the universes and galaxies in the cosmos are made of atoms and nothing else. But what are atoms after all but the indestructible absolute energy? The Jnani experiences this energy as the pure intelligence that is himself. The absolute reality is thus absolute energy as well as absolute energy as well as absolute consciousness. Sat as well as Chit, omnipotent, omnipresent as well as omniscient, the world as well as the creator and seer of the world. Verse 19. Arguments about destiny and free will are carried on by those who have not realized. Those who have are free from both. Disputations as to which prevails over the other, fate or free will, are for those who have no knowledge of the self, which is the ground of both fate and free will. Those who have realized this ground are free from both. Will they be caught by them again? Fate or destiny is karma. Karma, like free will, is unintelligent and can thus affect only the unintelligent in man, namely the body and not the intelligent being. How is the Lord of the body? When realization of this is achieved, karma and free will have no feet to stand on and will crumble to dust of their own accord. The scholar do not worry over whether destiny and free will affect the individual or his body, but argue about which of them dominate the other in its operation. Our own approach to this question is simple. We exercise our will freely and let karma take care of itself. Vasishtha Muni exhorts Rama to make constant efforts in his sadhana and forget about all the complexities of destiny. He compares karma and free will to two battling rams of which the stronger will always win in the end. The strong efforts will overcome destiny. Some theorists stretch themselves so far as to believe that even the exercise of the will is predestined, that is, destiny is always dominant, leaving no room for freedom of the will. If they are right, then religion, ethical conduct, obedience to moral laws, service of man and human actions are wasted effort, and evil doing will be on par with virtuous deeds. Moreover, man ought be no better than machines which produce what is put into them, or than animals which are not responsible for their actions and thus not liable to punishment or reward. Fortunately, it is not so. The admission of punishment and reward, which is the fundamental condition in the operation of karma, inevitably leads to the admission of free will. Karma begins to operate only after the will has been exercised ad libitum. The genesis is free will, not karma, which follows it like its shadow. Verse number 20. Seeing the self is seeing God, so the self is not other than God. Without seeing the self, the seeing of God is a mental image. Seeing the self is seeing God, they say, completely losing the ego and seeing the self is finding God, for the self is not other than God. The great Western religions hold that the question of whether there is a God other than man is sacrilegious. The supremacy of God over man, they argue, is so self-evident that the very question is derogatory to God Almighty. Bhagavan answers the question in the negative because whereas the Western theologians take man to be the nearest dust, the corruptible body, Bhagavan takes him to be the spirit or life within the body, which is infinite and eternal. Those who have no experience of the self but claim to have seen God, Bhagavan asserts, have seen only their own mental picture of God resembling their own physical picture more or less, having a shape, color, size, etc., which God, the pure spirit, simply does not have. So, I end this video here. Next video number 3 will start with verse number 21. Thanks a lot my dear friends for watching this video. Please like, comment and share the video and subscribe the channel. Thanks a lot. Namaskar.